previously, you had interviewed me.
Yes, I did.
And we included that, much to the chagrin of our listeners.
I heard one or two people enjoyed it.
Well, I mean, I don't know how my mom found out about the podcast, and my grandmother just follows everything I do. So that's not surprising. But now we're going to force feed our listeners some more information about us, whether they want it or not.
Or you talk about people not wanting it.
Well, we'll see how well this goes over. You'll probably get more love than me, but we'll see how this goes. In fact, they'll just listen to your answers. They'll cut out my questions and just listen to your answers because that
would be ideal.
That smooth Egyptian cotton voice that you got. That's from Belly Drum.
Oh yeah.
So we'll go ahead and jump into it, and I've got about 13 questions here, but some of them play into others, and I may cut some out as we go, just because you may answer them in other answers. So we'll start with this. We'll get some background. So tell our listeners about your first memory of video gaming, whether it's like your own personal system, or maybe you went to a local store and played with a kiosk or saw a display. Like, what was your first memory?
It's a good question.
That's why I asked it.
When I was... I'm sure it is. When I was probably about 4, I was on a family trip. I went to go visit some family that I believe at the time, now mind you, I was 4, so I don't remember this 100%, but I think they were living in New Mexico at the time. Had an uncle, and they had a house in New Mexico, and we were on this road trip. We spent some time there, and they had a Magnavox Odyssey 2. And I remember we all kind of curled around their small television to play this video game system. And they had a handful of games there. Had like Casey Munchkin and my favorite, Pickaxe Pete, and a few other ones. I think Casey's Crazy Chase or something like that. One of these... There was just a handful of cartridges there, but I remember everybody just having such a blast playing these games. And when we got back home, my parents actually ran out and got one. They went out and bought the Odyssey 2 and brought it home. And so we had that hooked up to the TV for quite a while, for probably another couple of years on the main TV. And then eventually that kind of became my own system at that point. I was the only one that would play it after the first few months anyways. So my earliest memory of gaming was playing that. And that was, if you don't know the Odyssey 2, it's kind of like an Atari 2600, but the system had like a keyboard built in. You could even get like a basic cartridge and code basic stuff. Unfortunately, there was no like permanent storage, so if you did any of that, it would just be wiped away the moment you turned off that system. But it had some really quirky games that were kind of neat. Like you could take I want to say it was almost like a cellophane type overlay and stick it on your TV with static, and it would make portions of your screen have like these different colors. The system did support color, but it had these interesting overlays. They had some combination board games that were video game board games, really different. But Pickaxe Pete was always the go-to, and it was just this repetitive game that you would jump up and hit these boulders and dodge boulders, and every once in a while you'd pick up a pickaxe and you'd be able to chop them up, and then you'd go into a door, and whatever the color of the door was would be the color of the next level, and it would redraw the level with the gaps and stuff. And every once in a while you'd get super unlucky and you'd jump in the door when it turned black, and then you couldn't see where the level was on the next one, and you could only rely on like where your character was to jump and get into elevator or ladders and whatnot. So yeah, it doesn't sound like it's super fun now, and looking back, it's terribly simple of a game, but I looked at it fondly back then.
What was your favorite game back then? No, we've established that as Pickaxe Pete. Okay, so have you collected for other systems in the past, or is Switch the first one that you pursued this much?
That's a complicated answer.
I'm a complicated kind of guy.
This interview is about me, though, not you.
Yeah, that's why I'm not answering the question for you.
If you look at my youth, I mean, I certainly collected a lot of different systems and games back then, but obviously being a youth, you don't have the income that you do as an adult, so you don't get to collect the same way that you do now. I have had a number of different types of collections with regards to video games. At one point, I was literally just trying to collect every system, and I had somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40 different systems. Ooh. Yeah, a lot of different systems. Some of the more obscure, I mean, everybody knows that the Virtual Boy exists, so that's not really obscure. I did own a fully operational and fully complete, including the iFoam piece, Virtual Boy. I
still do.
Yeah, I know you do. You live on Virtual Boy. Reminder, this is about me, not you.
I'm not going off on a tangent. I was just pointing out. Keep going.
I had a Vectrex, which was great, an actual vector monitor. I had a Wonder Swan, not the I also had a Wonder Swan color, but the original Wonder Swan. Let's see, an Atari 400. I also had an Atari 800. Those are like computers more so than consoles, but they are pretty much, in console form, much like the Odyssey 2. It had a keyboard for those as well. I got really into trying to like hunt down all the different consoles. I mean, all the mainstream ones I had, of course, your Xboxes, your PlayStations, all the Nintendo. There's not been a single generation of Nintendo console that I didn't own at some point.
So it was more console than game collection.
It was more console than game collection. Yeah. I mean, I still, of course, had games for all. I had like discs for my 3DO. I had Hue cards from my TurboGrafx 16, that kind of thing. But the game collection wasn't as established as the console piece of it, just because I felt like I was really wanting to start off with all that hardware. But at some point, I had this idea in my head that I wanted to build an arcade system. So I took my investment of that and sold it to help fund the arcade cabinet that I built. So
awesome. So did you have the N-Gage?
I did. I had an N-Gage.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. What a interesting piece of hardware.
So what made you decide the Switch was something you wanted to pursue?
The Switch, when the video was released and then they kind of showed what it could do, there was something in it that sparked a renaissance for me. It felt like Nintendo was going to get back on their game in some form here. I didn't see like Wii U 2.0 when I saw it. I saw like this was new, this was different in some key ways. They weren't completely cheapening out on their approach. They were reinvesting in themselves to do this. And then after the first few games, because honestly, day one, I didn't run out and buy everything on day one. The first day everything came out, I got a system, I got like 2 or 3 games, and then it was a little bit before I decided I was going to pick up the rest. But it was what those games were and how well the system worked that convinced me to do that. So that's what I did.
Is there a system that you always wanted but you never got?
I have to think really hard about that. Yes, but it's not your traditional system. LaserActive actually made a system that had modules you could add to it for different game functionality. So you would buy this base unit, LaserActive Laserdisc player, and I think by default it came, I want to say it came with like the Genesis module. so that you could throw a Genesis cartridge in and play Genesis games off of there. And it also, I want to say it supported the Sega CD games through that module. But you could also buy a TurboGrafx 16 module for it, and you could play Turbo CD games on that system. And I think there was even one other module for it. I'm struggling to remember which one it was, but I never got my hands on a Laseractive. The costs were through the roof, even when I was looking at this like 15 plus years ago. And the amount of systems that were still actually functional for the Laseractive were really low.
I never even thought about Laseractive myself. Was there a title that came out on the Switch that was surprisingly good to you? Like you expected it to be bad and it turned out to be good?
Oh, wow. That's a broad spectrum of games for me to try to figure out here.
I mean, is there one that when you saw it announced, you're like, that's going to be horrible? And then when you finally got it and played it, you're like, you know what?
Yeah. Okay. No,
expectations.
I can give you my answer to that. It took a bit for me to zero in on what that might be, but when you reword it that way, I can tell you that it was probably ARMS. I felt like ARMS was, when I first saw it, was one of the games that I was being a bit dismissive about. I thought, that doesn't look very good. It looks pretty shallow. There was a lack of depth to what I saw in the game. But my son and I actually play quite a bit of ARMS, and he got me to play it more than I probably would have. He and I spent quite a bit of time on it, and I've learned through that time the depth that game actually has, and it's surprising. It's better than you might imagine. Plus, they added characters, they added badges, they added other additional fists for the game.
All right, and coming off of that, what was the biggest disappointment? The game that you looked at and you're like, this is going to be great, and then you played it and you're like, and the answer can't be Mario Tennis Aces. Well, it can be, but
it could be, but it's not. Gosh, that's tough. I'm trying to think through things that are not necessarily top of mind, but the stuff that I'm thinking of is still stuff that's top of mind. Let me look at my collection here.
Yeah, I had to do that when you were interviewing me. I had to look at my collection.
I'm struggling to come up with something that really did that to me. I think that the one that keeps coming back to top of mind for me is Octopath Traveler. Octopath, visually stunning. Love what they did there. Some of the ideas that I felt that they were trying to bring to the game were great. I love the idea of the 8 different storylines potentially intertwining themselves, but I think the problem is that they never really matched the potential. And then at the same time, there was a lot more talking in the game than there probably should have been. Plus, the game itself was just dragging. It was taking a really long time. So I, at some point, decided I was going to step away from it because I didn't feel that the value proposition on that game was going to meet my expectations. And I think that was disappointing. So. Yeah,
there was a big build up for that. And the question wasn't what game was bad, you expected to be good. It was which one was the disappointment. So I get that.
Yeah. I mean, it just didn't fill the
it was such a big build up, and then they just didn't
fulfill that. Yeah.
All right. So what game would you like to see come to the Switch? And this is going to be a game that's already out on other platforms, or a game that you just want to see done and brought to the Switch? Yeah.
Oddly enough, even though I am not I'm not a big sports game nut, I really would like to see Madden come back to the Switch, come back to Nintendo. Madden is a franchise that left Nintendo a long time ago. It started on Nintendo, but it needs to come back. It needs to come home.
Depending on who you ask.
Well, it did. I mean, I believe the Super Nintendo version was the first one prior to Genesis. So
I was just making a little jab at somebody we know.
Yeah, well, They don't know shit. So yeah, but yeah, I'd love to see Madden come back and really bring the true Madden experience to the platform.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I get behind that 100%. I mean, Mutant League Football scratched an itch, but the itch is still there. It's not gone yet. All right, now transitioning from that, what already announced game are you looking forward to the most?
Ooh, you're capturing a very specific moment in time by asking that. Honestly,
we're going to get back into other questions pretty soon. So
yeah, this seems so cliche in a sense, but Smash. And the reason for that is I have this hope in my mind that it sort of recaptures what Melee was, but it's a cautious optimism.
I get that. Now back to some questions that aren't like future topic or future sense. We're gonna get back into the previous stuff, the past stuff that you can probably recall a whole lot easier. What is the prized piece of your collection?
Well, considering I sort of, had cleaned the slate before I went to the Switch, right now I'm sitting on just a Switch collection and my arcade and my PC, that type of thing. So you're really narrowing my choice by asking a question like that by default.
Let's do it this way. What is your prized piece of your Switch collection, and then what is your prized piece across all collectibles that you have? Because I know that you have a wide variety of like Lego play sets, and you have helmets from cartoons and stuff.
Yes.
So what's the prize Switch item?
Okay.
Whether it's a game or not, and then a total of your other collections.
Okay, right now for the Switch, I'm looking through it, just trying to formulate that answer because that's a tough one. I did have a little bit of a struggle just due to what happened when I ordered the game. So I'm going to say that the Bayonetta 1 that was a part of the Japanese collector's edition may be the prized Switch item. And it's not just because of that. I had to struggle a little bit to get that compared to some folks. I was not awake when it went up for sale. I missed the initial run. I purchased the game from an individual. And then as we got a little bit closer to when I should have expected it, it had not shipped. And so I sent a message asking, hey, when do you expect this to go out? At which point my order was canceled without my request. So I had to turn around and spend a lot more money on a new purchase of it. And then eventually that one arrived. And I had to do that in such a fashion that I had to send it to a mid-shipper in Japan, who then sent it over here, forwarded it over here. So it was kind of like a journey just to get that. When I really, really, really was hoping just to make the initial purchase right off of Amazon Japan and have it sent over. But that didn't happen. So I fought a little bit for that one, and I got it. So from the Switch collection right now, that would probably be the thing. Now, as far as just overall collectibles, yeah, you sort of alluded to it earlier, and it's definitely one of my prized possessions. I'm a big fan of Transformers. Used to have an absolutely massive Transformers collection spanning from the original 84 Transformers all the way up through like the early 20-teens. And really, I mean, I had thousands of Transformers at one point. Somewhere around here, I have pictures of that collection. I think I've even posted them a couple of times in the distant past. Out of that collection, I sold a majority of what I have. I still have a huge collection of Optimus Primes, probably like a couple of hundred Optimus Prime pieces already, but most of that stuff is packed away, except for a couple, and one of those is a helmet from the original Michael Bay movie. I'm not a big fan of Michael Bay, but the helmet of Optimus Prime with Peter Cullen's voice in it, signed by Peter Cullen, the actual voice of Optimus Prime, not just from that movie. He was the original voice of the 1984 animated Optimus Prime. And he's kind of one of my voice acting idols. I really, really enjoyed that cartoon growing up, and just, listening and watching, and the fact that they brought him back to do that voice when they did the movies was huge for me. And I got a chance to meet him. So to me, that's probably my prized collection item.
And then what is the grail that you haven't gotten yet?
Ooh, wow, that's.
I guess, is there something that you've actively been watching for to show up on a sale site, or something that you are waiting to come down in price?
I'll keep this Switch related, because even though I'm not collecting the system, the variant systems or Joy-Cons,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely would write a fat check for the Labo Switch with the tan on it.
Well, the cardboard style, yeah.
Yes, that there's something about the look of that. It's pretty striking. It's a pretty awesome looking device.
I was expecting you to say something like the Famicom Joy-Cons that are coming out next month.
I think those are a lot more achievable than.
Oh, because there was a very limited number of the Joy-Con one. Yeah,
I'm sure there will be, but I think that will be much more achievable to get, much more obtainable than the Labo Switch.
Yeah, I get you. All right, so I have one final question and then like a scenario type question. So the final question for you is what advice would you give to new collectors?
New collectors. Ooh. So somebody coming into Switch in general, or like what?
Sure. We'll do Switch specific.
All right. Well, first off, welcome to the club. The one thing that I've tried to instill in the Discord and the subreddit is, whether you have 10 or 100 games, it doesn't matter. I think that collecting is something all of us can enjoy, and each of us set our own parameters. I would not necessarily recommend doing what I'm doing to just anybody. You have to be both willing and able to do it. A lot of people are willing. That part is pretty easy to get through. It's the able. And I recommend that you make sure that your bills are paid first and your family is fed before you buy games. So that those pieces are paramount. You need to take care of business before you take care of pleasure, kind of thing. I am fortunate enough to have a decent job and have my bills paid and have my family fed before I have a chance to do this. But that being said, set parameters that really work for you. If you don't want to play crappy games, if you don't want to have those crappy games on your shelf, don't buy them. If that's not what's in your heart, if you just want a certain kind of game, do that. Just follow your heart on that. That's the best kind of advice for a new collector. Nobody is going to pressure you into anything. I mean, there's standard fun peer pressure that we have. Like everybody in our Discord must buy Troll and I, but that's just fun. We're just having fun with a memed game. Do what's right for you. Follow your heart on collecting. And when you do that, if you are true to yourself, true to your heart on that, you will not be disappointed. There's nothing at that point that can disappoint you about your collection.
Extreme lack of games on the Switch.
There are no games on the Switch.
None. All right. So my final one here is, okay, scenario, new gamer, parents are buying a Switch for Christmas. What one game is a must-own title? So this is a new gamer, so it's not necessarily the best game on the system. It's just one that a new gamer has to play.
How old is this gamer?
We're going to say early to mid-teens.
Mario Odyssey. It's a pretty easy choice. Mario Odyssey provides the all-around game experience at an extremely high level of polish. If you want to just run through the game top to bottom quickly and just beat the game, you can do that fast. You don't have to have like the skills, the mad skills, but if you want to expand upon that and like 100% the game, it can stretch out that amount of time. So, do your kids a favor, go out and buy them the Odyssey bundle if you can find it. Don't know if you can find it anymore, but if you can,
Joy-Cons are so nice.
You could do that. They get the red Joy-Cons, and then they get the game with the system, and then you're set. You're good to go.
Yeah. What game would you say that every adult should try?
Vroom in the Night Sky. No.
Scene.
Yeah. See, if you ask for adults tend to like. There are different people like different things, different genres, different stuff. So it's really hard to narrow.
All right. So thank you for the interview, and hopefully our listeners are more abreast as to your collecting history and your thoughts on it going forward, and the mindset you have in the moment. And I'm sure that they will enjoy listening to that and learning about you.
Thanks for checking out this quick OTS Bitcast. For more content from this month's episode, you can check out the full podcast right here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for listening.